Hey, what's up, everyone? Today on Clubhouse, Greg and Rana just brought up a situation that they ran into on a deal, and I thought it'd be, it's a little bit different than what I normally talk about on my Clubhouse takeaways, but I thought it was something that's super important and something that, as agents, we got to make sure that we keep an eye on. I never ran into this, but it's when you have the settlement statement for your closing. Make sure you're checking not just the closing date, but also the funding date on the settlement statement. They ran into a situation where they were originally planning to have an after hours closing for the buyers, which typically means that funding's not going to happen until, the next business day. And what ended up happening is they were able to move schedules around and actually move the closing up to within business hours on that same closing day, but never thought to connect with the lender to make sure that they also change the funding date for all of the funds to officially close out on the transaction. And why that's important is because what happened was they ended up closing within business hours, but because the funding date was never changed on the settlement statement, the title company had to follow what that date was, and therefore did not release funds until the next business day, which just happened to be Monday. So, in the seller's case, they actually didn't get their funds until Tuesday. And, in the buyer's case, they technically didn't close on the home until until Monday. And, as an agent, it just goes back to, I'm always big on systems and processes. And, this would just be something to add to your closing checklist, right? Your closing process is just making sure that the funding date reflects the same as the closing date. And, as an agent, maybe it's best practice to have policies in place to where, you don't do any closings, after 3 p.m. And if a buyer or seller needs to close after 3 p.m., then you have a checklist of, okay, now we need to double check with, when will funding happen? When will the bank and the title company make sure everything is closed and closed out? And because your possession time is affected by that. So just thought I would share that. Like I said, it's something that, I never ran into personally as far as, an issue. But anytime, in real estate, you hear of something along these lines, that's what I love about this business is we're always able to learn no matter how many years we're in the business, because things just come up. And, this just allows us to make sure, that our closing process, that we have the right checks, check boxes and checklist in place to make sure we don't run into anything like this, because this could, in this case, it didn't really change a ton on the deal. But, in a case where you have someone buying, selling, this could really screw up and delay that process and not just the closing, but moving and possession and all of those things that go into it. So just wanted to share that with you, more of a tip, more of a, make sure you put this into your checklist for closings, and make sure you have this process dialed in, and make sure maybe you implement maybe a policy to where you don't close on Fridays, or you don't close after 3 p.m. or whatever the case may be. And if you do, in that case, you make sure you go over all of the, all of the different scenarios with your buyer or with your seller, depending on who you're representing.